Chapter 22. Sometimes, in a pinch, frivolous young squirrel mates can turn out far more resourceful than they themselves would have known. So it was with Celandine. As a rambling rosehip player, she had acted the part of the brave and beautiful heroine many times. Now was her chance to give a star performance. Captain Traumenclog advanced on her, leering and winking roguishly. "Ha ha! Don't be afeard of me, pretty little bird. Soon you'll be singing just for me." Celandine backed off, throwing up her paws in horror.
"Begone, you great ugly toad! Put not a paw near me!"
Clog, who'd always imagined himself as a handsome buccaneering beast, halted indignantly.
"Ugly toad? You hard-nosed little snip! Come here, I say!"
"Never! I would rather die!"
"Ho-ho, missy! That can be arranged. Now be still, or you'll make it worse on yourself."
Clog leaped at her, clutching with his free paw. Celandine stumbled back, half tripping. She grabbed a pawful of the sandy soil and flung it straight into the corsair's face. Regaining her balance, she dashed off. Clog dropped his cutlass and sat down hard, pawing at his eyes, which were jammed full of loose, gritty dust.
"Get after that bold baggage and catch her!"
he howled at his crew.
"Lively now! I'll have her ears for dinner, and her liver and tripes tore out."
Only Gruzzles stayed back to look after Clog. The rest set off at a run after Celandine, laughing and cheering. They knew a single squirrel maid could not get far with an entire crew of corsairs hard on her paws. Celandine ran as she had never run before, wishing that she had not added all the frills and furbelows to her rambling rosehip tunic. They impeded her, and often caused her to stumble. Behind her, she could hear the whoops and guffaws of her pursuers as they drew closer. The squirrel maid's breath came in ragged sobs. She was unused to running any great distance. Captain Clog had made it plain that he meant her harm, and there was no telling what might happen to her if she fell into the claws of sea rats and corsairs. Death would be inevitable. Not knowing where she was running to, Celandine forced her flagging limbs onward. 3 sea rats, Gritter, Crableg, and Bloodnose, took the lead, outstripping the rest of Clog's crew easily. They were good runners, lean and fit. A sand dune rose up in front of Celandine, and there was no way around it. She panted fitfully, going down on all fours as she attempted to scramble up the hill. Crableg put on an extra spurt and dived forward. He managed to catch the squirrel maid's back footpaw. Wriggling swiftly on her back, Celandine kicked out. She caught him hard on the snout, causing Crableg to release her. The sea rat was so close, he could have reached out and touched her.
"You ain't going to be pretty no more, squirrel!"
he snarled as he wiped a stream of blood from his snout onto the back of his paw. Whipping a curved dagger from his waist sash, he brandished it. Suddenly, a wooden lance seemed to grow out of its chest. Crableg looked down at it and fell dead with a foolish expression of surprise on his face. The slaying happened so quickly that Gritter and Bloodnose had not seen it. They arrived panting at the dune to find their messmate lying dead, with the short wooden lance protruding from him like a ship's mast. There was no other creature in sight except the squirrel maid, her eyes wide with horror. Gritter drew his sword and walked uphill towards her.
"You killed Crableg with that piece of wood, you little serpent!"
As he raised the sword, another javelin came whistling through the air and transfixed him through the throat. Bloodnose had drawn his sword, but his nerves failed him. With a small wail of fright, he flung the weapon away and took to his heels, back towards the main group, who were now in sight. Celandine sat shocked, looking at the 2 dead sea rats in front of her.
"Celandine, climb the hill! Get up here quickly!"
A hoarse, urgent voice called from the hilltop. She sat staring at the carcasses of Crableg and Gritter, unable to comprehend what had happened.
"Celandine, climb the hill! Get up here quickly! Move yourself, missy!"
Bala's voice rang out theatrically.
Come on, up here, or you'll miss your cue.
Automatically, Celandine picked herself up and scrambled dumbly to the hilltop. Roanoke's huge paws swept her over the hill and out of sight. The badger clamped a paw over the squirrel maid's mouth, and Bala and Feldo fixed fresh javelins onto their throwers. Crosstooth the fox had always liked Crableg's curved dagger. He took it from the sea rat's lifeless paw and tucked it into his belt as he nudged Gritter's body with his spear shaft.
You mean to tell us that the pretty little squirrel did this?
Bloodnose was shaking uncontrollably.
Well, there was no beast else hereabouts. She must have did it.
The ferret Boggs curled his lips scornfully.
Did you see the squirrel killin'?
Bloodnose sat down on the dune side, head in paws.
No, I never. One moment they was large as life. Next thing they're both dead. She must have done it. Can't you see? She's vanished. I knew we should never have messed with magic beasts.
A weasel called Floater swapped his own chipped and rusted sword for the better blade that Gritter had once owned, and scoffed aloud.
Vanished me tail. We seen her go over this here dune. See, there's the beauty's paw tracks. I'm going up there and get her myself.
Clog stumped to join the rest, with Gruzzle at his side, still trying to clear the corners of his captain's eyes with a none-too-clean silk kerchief. Trommond shoved him away and patted Floater's back.
Aye, there's the laddo. Up the hill ye go, Floater. Sing out if you sees anything up there.
As they stood watching the weasel scale the dune, Clog muttered in his beard to himself.
Nay, it weren't no snip of a squirrel he made did for two tough rogues like Crableg and old Gritter. The beast that did this could sling a lance good and proper.
Shielding his eyes, Clog squinted up at the weasel, who had made it to the top of the hill.
Ahoy, Floater! Any signs of life up there?
The weasel waved his paws wildly, shouting aloud,
Captain, it's 3!
Floater came tumbling awkwardly back down the dune, flopping this way and that, hampered in his fall by the short lance through the center of his back. The body halted its sliding descent right in front of the captain's big wooden clogs.
3 of me best fighting beasts slain. The murdering scoundrels, whoever they are. Right, buckos, arm yourselves and take the hill. Charge!
Clog stood back, whirling his cutlass as he urged them on. The charge was not a notable success. No beast wanted to reach the top first, and there was a deal of hanging back and accidental stumbling before Clog realized what was going on. The pirate stoat did a small dance of anger, Clogs clicking sharply.
You bottlenose blouters! Get up that hill right now, do you hear me? That's an order from your captain! Go up! Charge!
They stood awkwardly about a third of the way up the dune, still unwilling to storm the hilltop. Clog unsheathed his cutlass and began bustling his way up, knocking crew members left and right as he did.
Out of me way, ye mackerel-faced, milk-swigging muckheads! You're nothing but a pack of ring-tailed cowards!
As they turned to look sheepishly at him, a sea rat named Wulp screamed when a short javelin zinged out of nowhere and slammed right through his footpaw. The charge immediately deteriorated into an undignified rush down the hill. Clog followed in the rear, berating them soundly.
One little spear and you're all running about like beetles in a bucket! Ah, shame! I never thought I'd see the day a crew of mine would dash off without even seeing the enemy!
When they were a reasonable distance from the big dune, the corsairs stopped and sat down on a grassy sward. Trommond came clattering up, with Wulp limping slowly several lengths behind. The corsair captain slumped down and began emptying sand from his clogs.
Gruzzle, I'm fair disappointed in you, matey. And you, Deadjaw, and you, Boggs. Mateys, what are ye all afeard of? A few old sharpened wooden sticks?
Whum! A needle-pointed lance arced out of the blue summer sky, narrowly missing Trommenclog as it pinned his coat skirt to the ground. The corsair captain leaped up as if he had been bee-stung, ripping his coat from the quivering lance in the process.
Tidal waves and typhoons! There must be a monster beyond yon hill! No beast could hurl a lance that far!
The rout continued, with Clog in the lead as he scurried back to the safety of Marshank. Behind the sand dune, Feldo lay watching over the rim at the retreating corsairs. Bala blew a long sigh of relief as he put down his javelins and thrower.
Good job they never charged the bally top and stormed us. There was enough of the blighters.
Roanoke dusted sand from herself.
There certainly was. Imagine if they got past us. Our camp is only over the next hill, south and east on the cliff tops.
Celandine suddenly bounced back as if nothing had happened. Primping the lace hems of her tunic, she remarked airily,
"Oh, yes, I had an idea it was. That's why I headed over this way."
Bala rolled his eyes upward in mock despair.
You dreadful little fibber, miss. You were coming this way because a band of ruffians were chasing you.
"Oh, them."
Celandine tossed her tail huffily.
"I knew they wouldn't get me."
Feldo turned around from the dune rim. But how did you know? Celandine clasped both his paws, fluttering her eyelids wildly.
"Because I knew in my heart that my brave Feldo would come to my rescue. And you did."
Roanoke smiled and shook her huge head.
Come on, brave Feldo. Let's get this ruthless charmer back to camp.
Feldo felt his face burning as Celandine hung on his paws, praising him outrageously.
"You're so strong, so courageous, and so accurate with your sharp little sticks. Oh, look, I pricked my paw on one."
When they had gone, Brome emerged from hiding. He had followed Feldo with the intention of joining him, until the badger and the hare decided to help his friend. Brome had stayed out of sight, knowing that Bala and Roanoke would have sent him packing back to camp. So he secreted himself in a clump of tor grass and watched them rescuing Celandine. Brome had grown a lot bolder since his escape from Marshank. He admired Feldo and wanted to be like him, but he was treated as a young one in the camp. Brome climbed the dune and peered down on the 3 dead corsairs, imagining himself launching lances alongside Feldo and simmering with resentment at being left out. He slid down the dune on his bottom and sat looking at the 3 lifeless figures. After a while, the young mouse ventured to pick up the sword which lay near Gritter. He swung it in the air, trying a few fancy strokes, an idea forming in his head as he did so. There were still a good number of slaves to be freed from Marshank. Imagine the looks on the faces of Feldo, Bala, and Roanoke if he, Brome, came marching back with a score or so of slaves that he had rescued. The more Brome swung the sword, the more he liked the idea. He would do it. Arming himself with the sword and a dagger from Floater's belt, he dressed himself up in an assortment of corsair gear, which he took from the 3 bodies. Smudging up his face with a few pawfuls of dust, Brome pulled the brim of Crableg's floppy hat down at a rakish angle and set off for Fortress Marshank. Swaggering along like a villainous sea rat, he practiced the brogue.
Ha ha ha! I'm Bucktail, as good a matey that ever sailed the seas and plundered landlubbers. Ha ha ha! And ho ho!